Welcome to the Hazard Class Podcast. This is the podcast where I ask my stupid questions to some of the smartest people in and around the world of emergency services. Today's guest is Director Tom Putnam and retired LA County Assistant Chief Steve Martin. Tom Putnam is a filmmaker and director best known in the fire service for his documentaries Burn and Burn X, which followed members of the Detroit Fire Department and documented the operational realities facing one of the busiest urban fire departments in the country. His work has focused heavily on emergency services, public safety, and documentary storytelling centered around first responders. Steve Martin was the former assistant chief with the LA County Fire Department, where he spent decades in the fire service overseeing operations, emergency response, and leadership assignments within one of the largest fire departments in the United States. Steve has joined the project as an executive producer and is helping lead the efforts to bring the film to completion through a Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign. Today, we're going to discuss their new project, Into the Unknown, A Paramedic's Journey, a documentary focused on the experiences and challenges faced by paramedics and EMS professionals. Let's get into it.
My fiber request.
Yeah. Welcome, guys. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Jay, for having us.
Of course, yeah. And so if we throw back to early on in the days of Hazard Class, Tom joined me. Episode 4, actually, we talked about Burn, talked about Burn X, and then surprisingly enough, we were just kind of lamenting that we were talking about Into the Unknown then, which was whereabouts a year and a half ago that I was fortunate enough to see the film. I've actually watched it a few times since, and it's awesome. It's amazing. And it's I guess, shocking for an outsider from the film industry it would seem so simple that, oh, you have this awesome movie. It seems to be fully produced and ready to go. Why can't we send it to the masses? And so we get here a year and a half or so later, and we're like, please help us share this awesome story. So bring me into the fold, whether it's you, Steve, or you, Tom. What's going on inside Into the Unknown, and where are we at in launching this to the masses?
First of all, thanks for having us on. It's awesome to see you again. I'm so jealous. Last time we had matching mustaches. Now yes. I'm all clean shaven.
I know.
I'm jealous.
Yeah.
Steve, do you want to talk about the background, or
well, if we're going to talk about the background, we can talk about how we got here, and then we can talk about where we're at.
Really, two stories, I guess. Let me consolidate that question a little bit. Let's talk about. I'll give this one to Tom first and say, where are we at in terms of this movie physically coming out into the masses, and then we're going to talk about Steve, how you rolled in and how you're helping to assist in that process.
Okay. It's funny. I keep getting referred to as the new guy on this project by the team, and because I've only been on it for like 5 years.
Yes.
Whereas our executive producers, Randy Mantooth and Kevin Teig from Emergency, they've been working on this for literally decades, and then Steve and the other producers have been on this for probably before my son was born. So right now, the movie is done. Oh, amazing. It took forever to get done. Everybody loves it. And just like with my movie Burn, we had to raise the money ourselves, make it ourselves. And like with Burn, we don't have a Netflix or an Amazon or an HBO behind us, so we have to release it ourselves. So we're right in the middle of what's called a Kickstarter. If you don't know what that is, it's a fundraising campaign where people pledge money to help underwrite the release of the film, which we're paying for ourselves. And in exchange, they get a lot of cool stuff. Digital copies of the movie, special thanks on screen in the film, and all the copies. If you're an Emergency fan, we have some stuff that is super rare. Brand new signed photos from Randy and Kevin, challenge coins from Randy's personal collection, models of the station that they're signing. So that part's been a lot of fun. We're like a week into it, and Steve probably knows all these people, but I've made about 150 new friends emergency fans, and it's been pretty cool. Now that people have a chance, they've been following this, some of them for 10 years, and now that people have a chance to be a part of it and get involved, it's been really fun to watch people all around the world just come out and like, what can we do to help get this film out? If we're successful in the Kickstarter, the movie will be out in select theaters this fall, and then out digitally worldwide in 80 plus countries in time for the holidays.
Wow. And if I will inject here before we hear from Steve, it's like, I totally get it. Somebody might at surface value or at surface, you notice, go, well, why would I pledge money to launch somebody else's movie? But I will tell you, as a first responder, as someone that's been on the scenes that this movie portrays, you go, wow, what an unbelievable tool to show our story. Because it's I think I talked about it at length the first time we talked, Tom, but it's unbelievable the footage that you were able to capture. I mean, the things that you see from literally over the shoulder of these EMS workers and these paramedics, you can't believe it. And so you say, wow, this is the only way the world will see what we do and hopefully make systemic change because of it, right? It's the only way to really bring people on ride-alongs that would otherwise never have the opportunity to see these things. And so it truly does grab you and pull you in, and you feel compelled to like join the mission, which is a very odd thing to say about a movie, but it's absolutely true and totally the way that I felt about it when I watched it. So let's boil this back. And let me hear from you. So if I'm hearing correctly, Steve, you were on board prior to Tom, is that correct?
Yes, I was one of the original. Actually, I can tell you how it started. After 30 years with LA County Fire Department, 25 years ago, I met Randy Mantooth because, of course, his show Emergency was about my department, LA County Fire. So we had done some social things, and we were going to take the Squad 51 from our museum to the Smithsonian. So I met Randy during this project, and we just hit it off and have been friends ever since. Comes time for my retirement in the late 2018. Randy says, hey, Kevin, they've had this lifelong dream that emergency brought so many people into pre-hospital care and being firefighters, being paramedics. There's people we've run into, doctors, nurses, all kinds of people said, I joined this profession because I watched this show, as a young adult, and this is what I wanted to do. And so their idea was that after 25 years at that time, emergency had been on, how are we going to motivate and bring the next generation of people into the fire service and into being paramedics? So that was their idea, was to make a film that would show what paramedics and first responders do presently. But this is before the pandemic. So this was in 2000. His initial call to me was, hey, Steve, would you like to be a technical advisor or something on this film? Well, I can tell you real quickly, and more from that to being a producer, which I had absolutely no experience in. I mean, I could organize fires, I can brush fires, big gullies, whatever it is. But producing a movie, I was, okay. And it was kind of learning on the fly. But it was after we were there and we started the lengthy process. As you just mentioned, the stories that you saw and looking over their shoulders, it was years for us to find those crews that we were able to get into only because of legal roadblocks within the organizations themselves. If we were to go to your Chicago fire, is that where you?
St. Paul, Minnesota.
Oh, St. Paul, even better. That's where I'm from, Minneapolis.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I go.
You go to the department. You've got a colorful cast. You've got great people. You've got everything. But we've got to get clearance through our downtown, through the agency. First lawyer at the door says, nope, sorry. We've been burned before. We've got HIPAA laws, rules. There's so many things. They're up for lawsuits. They go, no. So the door got slammed so many times that we just had to keep trying, and then finding interesting stories. And the stories we have actually turned out to be probably some of the best that we came across. But a few slipped through the cracks because we couldn't get into the agencies. But we really just persevered. The funny part is once they saw the finished product and what we did, they are very happy. They're very happy at how we portrayed their departments, their personnel. the city, wherever it was we were. It was good to to have that come through. But we had many years, especially going through COVID, where we didn't think this thing was going to get off the ground. We were just kind of skipping along. Mm-hmm. But we got the good stories. But when all of a sudden, then we needed a director that could go out into the community, could go out into fire stations and been around first responders that knew the jargon. He didn't have to try to figure out what to do. You got to kind of be like Tom and I be. You know how the fire service is. Yeah. If you're sitting in the back of the room, no one's going to call you forward. You got to push your way to the front. Tell them what you want to do. Show them. And so when we found Tom, that was the blessing from on high, because we saw what he'd done. We saw what his history was. He'd worked on with another show on my department too. So bringing him in just was seamless and natural. And that's how we really took off after that time.
So to go back to those initial planning meetings, like it might be kind of a difficult question to ask, but I would imagine looking at the finished product now, could you have ever fathomed that it would be possible to capture what was captured? Because when I watch it, my jaw was agape for the movie, because you go, my goodness, not only is it insane that all the legality around putting this on film, but the odds of being there at the time to see some of the things you see, like, could you ever have possibly imagined you would have got as fortunate to see the things as you saw?
In the fire service, we have a thing that says if you want to have a quiet shift, just have somebody do a ride-along. Yeah, right? Bring a news crew along. You could have had a fire every day for the last 2 months, but if you bring a news crew on, boom, nothing. So we knew. So I knew going on, I'm like, boy, this is going to be the curse of the film crew. Yeah. But right off the bat, our very first night, very first call was one of the opening scenes from the film, where the gentleman gets carjacked and unfortunately doesn't, make it past the hospital doors. And so for guys like us, that's work. That's a normal everyday thing. It's bad. It's sad. You suck it up and you go to the next call. Mm-hmm. But what was different was that we had this civilian film crew, and all these folks had never seen anybody die in front of them. Yes. They'd never seen something like that happen, and it traumatized them. It affected them. Now we had to change it up even more. We had to get in and have meetings with these people, talk about it and get their feelings out. I mean, it was like, oof, these were things I never expected. Never expected on film.
And to your, to you, Tom, it's as you, I guess maybe procedurally, how does this work? Like as the director, like I know that this film, I guess people wouldn't know this, but I know this. This is filmed across multiple jurisdictions across the country in different times. How does a director manage that? And like, are you just like in some sort of centralized hub taking in footage and deciding what stories to pursue, or how does it work?
Oh no, I am right. I am 6 inches past the frame of the camera, like in almost every case. We shot it a lot like we shot Burn. We had typically 2 camera crews, drone crew, GoPros. I mean, we had up to 8 or 10 cameras at any given time rolling. And I used to produce and direct sports for CBS, and honestly, it was very similar, where I have a headset on, I'm watching everybody, and it's not because, these are people that have been doing this job for years. In terms of the paramedics we're following, they move fast. You sometimes have maybe a minute or two before everything's over. But whereas when I was doing Burn and Burn X with the Detroit Fire Department or LA Fire and Rescue with Steve's old department, there you're dealing with like burning buildings. Here there was this whole added component where, because of HIPAA laws, we had to have permission before we could enter somebody's house. It's one thing if they're on a sidewalk or a public place, but every department we filmed in had different HIPAA laws. And I mean, for every call you see in the movie, there's probably 10 or 12 calls we couldn't use, because totally understandably somebody's having the worst day of their life and they don't want a film crew and a guy with a boom pole and all this stuff in their living room. Yeah. We're like, yeah, no problem. And we stand back. So for me, it was like a lot of controlled chaos. Because you're not only managing all these camera crews and sound people and PAs, and then Steve and his other producers are getting releases signed, and you have to make sure everybody's safe too. I mean, for anybody who's on the job, you know, you guys know, but the average civilian doesn't know, there's a lot of mental health calls that happen. And it was pretty, there's one that we have one in the movie. It's pretty regular where you get a call and it's somebody with a machete or somebody's fighting, and there's a couple in the film where, you know, people go after the camera crew. And not only is that something you have to keep an eye on, but then you have a camera person who's holding like $150,000 camera that they use to shoot Dune 2. And the last thing you want is some guy throwing a beer bottle at it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really a lot of sort of managing it. And then at the same time, when you have the right moment, is me popping in and being nice and being respectful and, you know, trying to ask a couple questions, which is not the easiest thing in the world if somebody's been shot or had a heart attack or is freaking out. But I think because of Steve and our other producer, Baxter Larman, and our producer, Tanya Mantooth, who's Randy's sister, they had such a great bedside manner that by the time we were shooting, or by the time it was time for me to maybe ask a couple questions or kind of capture some more moments, the people who had originally called 911 expecting an ambulance or a fire truck to show up and not an entire film crew was pretty cool. And ultimately, I think it was a positive experience for folks.
Mm-hmm. So the other thing that this film does that I was super impressed with is that it really goes head on to some of the problems with the American EMS system, and not only the failings of the American EMS system currently, but also some of the repercussions for the responders. And it would have potentially been easy to shy away from it and make it like a shock and awe, look at this cool stuff movie, but it doesn't. It dives deep and goes head on with some of these issues. What were those decisions like to do that? Because it could have been easy to make it a bang, bang, shoot them up. Look at this. This is crazy. But it doesn't do that. It goes the next layer deep and really tackles some of these American healthcare problems that are not so sultry to talk about.
Well, if I can say this, and then Tom, you fill in too. When we started the film, we had, we put a mission statement basically out there for ourselves. The first thing that we said we wanted to do is we want to honor those that do this job. In other words, so they can see themselves up on the screen and go, wow, that's what I do. Two, we wanted to educate those first responders, families, friends, and the general public on what it is these people do. You might see an ambulance go by, you see fire trucks, you wonder, my neighbor had a heart attack. Why was there 3 fire trucks and 2 ambulances? So people just don't know. And so we were kind of educating. And then the third one was to hopefully introduce that next generation of people into this, into this job, and give them a pathway for that. But what happened was, as Tom will attest, is we can go out there. We didn't want to make a movie that was all about the system's broken, everything's bad, it's bad, we're underfunded, understaffed, blah, blah, blah. That's if you don't have resolution to something, we didn't feel it was important to put it out there. Mm-hmm. But what we did find that was very surprising to us was that the mental health aspect of these workers is first and foremost right now on everybody's mind. It's the biggest thing. I don't know when you came on the job, but when I did, we never heard of any first responder. I never knew of a firefighter that took his own life. Mm-hmm. And now you can read about it once a week. It's sad. Mm-hmm. As a fire-based EMS, see, we're kind of diverse too. We're not all fire-based EMS. We've got private government agency. We got a little bit of everything. And some of these folks, like you and I, maybe when I was a medic, if I was getting a little burned out, you know what? I'm just going to go ride the engine for another year or whatever. I'm going to go backwards, as we used to say. But when you do this job and it's your life and you're living and that's how you support your family, there is no time off. There is no breaks. And so we started seeing firsthand some people right in front of us, and Tom would do an amazing job interviewing these people after the calls, or just to get their whole broad perspective on their job. And boy, sometimes the tears would just come out because once they start talking about it, it was like the same thing. So mental health now became, our big impetus in this film.
Mm-hmm.
That was, hey, Steve, can I jump in?
Yeah.
That was a huge surprise for me doing this because when we started this movie, I'd spent 10, 12 years filming with the fire service. But I mean, the paramedics or EMTs, that was always the rig that I would like just see zip out at the shift change. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even in Burn, I think in 10 years of filming with that department, there was an EMT squad in Engine 50 where we were stationed, and I maybe said 2 sentences to those guys. They were just never there. They were just cranking. And as somebody that knows probably more than the average civilian about the fire service, I still had no idea about the volume of calls, and certainly not about the toll that those took. So once we started to realize that, it was really important to us to make a hopeful movie that offered solutions. So we spent a lot of time in Southern Oregon at a place called the Chiron Ranch, where first responders go after they've had a bad call to deal with their PTSD and go to therapy. And we spent time with an entire department that was in therapy, and a husband and wife in their first session, and a guy who, Steve, I think he was an officer from a local department who had been in therapy for a while. And it was really important to us to offer solutions and ultimately create a movie that isn't just hopeful, but just like with Burn, feels truthful, but the right person sees it and says, oh my God, that's what I've been looking for. That's the job for me. Because, we all turn on the news now, and it's easy to get overwhelmed and feel hopeless and see that there's all these problems in the world, and like, what can one person do? And this is one of those jobs that there aren't very many of anymore, where you go to work and you make a real difference for people. And it's funny, so we had the same crew through the whole shoot. It was about a year. And our assistant camera person, Jacob Depp, who worked on like the Fast and Furious movies, has been in the business forever. He got out of the business and went to EMT school because he just was, oh my gosh, this is the thing I've been looking for. Mm-hmm. So that was actually pretty cool to see. Cool. So we're very hopeful that this film won't just, it's action packed. You've seen it. We're like hanging out of a Black Hawk helicopter in Santa Barbara, racing around. It was nuts, but at the same time, it's very human. It offers solutions, and we're really excited for all of these departments around the country or beyond to be able to use it as a way to show people that thing they've been looking for and get recruitment up. Because that other thing I didn't know when I went into this is how hard it is to hire right now and to find people, and the level of burnout. I think it was, Sparks, Nevada. Their calls are up 400% and their staffing is down 25%. We were in Medford, Oregon, and it was like something like 1,600% increase in calls. It was just wild. But for the right people, that's the money,
Yeah. And I would say, obviously there's an upper limit to it, but I think for the most of us that get into this career field to do the job, the calls keep coming, and that's okay, right? Because that's what we're here to do. It's just a matter of hoping that there's support on the backside when you go and do your job. And that's what I think the biggest thing that people inside the career field are fighting for now. It's like, yep, we know that we have to go. We know that we're being asked to do more than we've ever had to because of various reasons, but just be here for us when we need you afterwards, right? And that's what we're asking for. So one thing that we did, because we're all so familiar with the film, is bounce straight into talking about some of the intricacies. Can you give me, for the uninitiated, kind of a 10,000-foot view of what the film covers and what you're kind of hoping to display?
Sure. We spent a year embedded with 5 teams of paramedics around the country, wide variety, from volunteers in rural Virginia to air ops in Santa Barbara, fire-based in Reno, two sisters who went through the Columbine shooting together, who worked for hospital-based in Denver, private service in Baton Rouge, but also their families. We spent time with dispatchers, which, wow, I had no idea. And then one of our producers is the former Surgeon General, Richard Carmona, who comes in and gives us like a big picture view in terms of the systemic story. We really wanted to give people in 90 minutes just a breakneck, action-packed ride through the job and the toll and the ways people are taking that trauma who do the job and having that make them stronger and better service providers and better community members. So it's like, imagine if instead of burn with one department, we were with 5 departments all around the country who were just as busy. So I think hopefully, and so far with our screenings, this has been the case for people who do the job. They feel like finally somebody told the story accurately, which is funny because people come in and they're like thinking it's going to be like Chicago fire or something.
Yes,
and when they leave, they're like, oh, wow, this was a real thing. Okay. And for people who don't know, just like with burn, it's a way to educate them so that when it's time to vote or it's time to think about what they want to do or what their kids want to do, they think about it differently and vote differently. And that I think is like the big picture. It's for people that are used to watching YouTube videos where it's like a GoPro on somebody's helmet or on somebody's iPhone. This is totally different. This is like a huge widescreen movie, and it plays like an action movie, even though everything in it is the real deal. So we also wanted to make a movie for people that don't go home and watch PBS, but want to go home and watch Deadly's Catch. So it's a amazing ride.
Hey gang, if you could do me a big favor, if you enjoy the podcast, please consider subscribing on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Follow the show on social media. Share the show whenever possible. It really makes a big difference. This podcast is brought to you in part by Hikes Boots. You can tell a lot about brand by the way they choose to advertise. And Hikes didn't ask me to say anything in particular. You know what they did? They sent me a couple pairs of boots. They sent me the Fire Eagle Air, the Fire Eagle Extreme. They said, try them out. Let us know how you think they do. And let me tell you the truth. They've been awesome. My feet are loving it. They're supportive. They feel kind of like wearing a running shoe or something. But they fit super well. I just can't say enough about how much I've enjoyed them so far. I've had them for about a month and a half or so. They've just been great. So if you want to find out more information about them, check them out at hikesusa.com. That's HAIXUSA.com, or check the show notes for the direct link. Today's episode is also brought to you by Rigaku Analytical Devices, who are the folks that have been perfecting the 1064 nanometer ramen longer than a lot of us have even been doing hazmat. And they just launched their 4th generation handheld analyzer, the Icon X. It's built specifically for real-world hazmat teams dealing with real-world problems every day. We're talking about dirty powders, mixed materials, dyes, colors, and all the things that make other instruments throw a tantrum. The 1064 nanometer laser means reduced fluorescence, so you get fast, reliable chemical ID in under a minute instead of staring at your blank screen, wondering what the heck went wrong. And this new platform isn't just an upgrade, it's a whole new toolbox. It supports new accessories, including standoff analysis, so you can get answers without getting too close. And if you want an analyzer that's been evolving right alongside the hazmat world, check out Rigaku's newest ramen at rigakuanalytical.com or check the show notes. Back to the show. And I alluded to that earlier, but I think that on surface level, you think, oh, you make an EMS movie, it's for EMS people, right? It's for people that are in the industry. And it is, but I think it actually is most valuable for the people outside the community that have never seen it with their own eyes. That you can say, this is what we see. It's not practical to bring your entire community in the back of an ambulance with you, but it is possible to allow them to watch it. And like now in the best quality, the best possible way I've ever seen it, to bring them inside the ambulance, inside the trauma room and see what it's actually like, at the tip of the spear. And that is actually personally what I see as the biggest value. It's like, show it to the mayor, show it to the council, show it to everyone, right? Because that's who's gonna, if the people at the ground floor want change, that change is not going to come from our ranks. It's going to come from someone above us. And so how do we get those people to understand the actual realities? And it's something like this, which is, so I've never seen anything else like it. So I want to get back to your career, Steve. So you came on in 86, right? You became a medic shortly thereafter.
Yes.
What was paramedicine like at that point in comparison to what you're seeing now? And can you fathom the vast chasm between those two things?
Yeah, that's interesting because I have a son who's now a paramedic in Sacramento Fire. And when I talk to him, he'll call me at night or on his after shift and talk about some of these things. Some of the things he's still amazed. He goes, "Oh, yeah, we were there protecting the spear when we started intubating people." And then so I can talk about that. Other things he starts talking about, I'm like, whoa. What are you talking about there? He goes, "Oh, we do this, we do this, we do this now." Yes, things have progressed. And not only that, we used to have to call in every single thing. We were like an emergency show. You get there, you get the phone out, you call the hospital, you tell them what you have, they tell you what to do. Well, as that whole thing changed, that model changed through the years, there's protocols we go by. And so now you see this, you do this. If it does this, you do this. It's the algorithm of it. And so these guys and gals are out there doing this job. So much more responsibility now, I think, than we did. You still have to have recognition. You still have to have compassion. So we've got people that can do that job at 3 a.m. in the morning when you get called out, and grandma fell out of bed. You've got to have compassion for people. And you'll see that in the movie, even with one of our biggest studs, the military, a guy, Cat Foyle. But yet he's a hand holder, is what we used to call him, the guy that can calm the patient down. But so those kind of qualities are still needed and they're still the same. But technically, what they do, how they do it, and the equipment they have to do it with is, like I said, because I was doing that, 40 years ago now. It's a lot of changes, good changes, though. Good.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that we kind of talked about is how the film really goes head on into some of the challenges, not only from the PTSD, but from maybe, for lack of a better term, the broken dispatch system, the influx of calls that are maybe better routed to other things, problem buildings they've been to multiple times or whatever that case might be. It maybe is an unanswerable question, but what are you seeing and what was your experience maybe from inside of the world and from Steve's perspective or outside of the world, from Tom's perspective, the state of American EMS right now? How can we even begin to start to solve the problem? Is there any solution that you've been able to gather or any wisdom that you've been able to gather from seeing it from all these different lenses?
Let me go inside, Tom, and you go to the outside. Because I will tell you this, Jake, this is the thing. There were so many issues in EMS, as you alluded to, between fundings and support and personnel and all that, so many things. We didn't want to tackle all those issues. Our main thing was to focus on the people who do the job. Mm-hmm. When we did that, that's when we found out what one of the biggest issues of everything is the mental health aspect. So if we could focus on that, then we could say, well, what are departments doing? In my career time, we didn't. You know how it was. You go on a bad call, you saw something bad, you went back to the station, somebody might have made a joke about it, a little dark humor, or you just took it home and had a few beers and forgot about it. Mm-hmm. But that changed, and thankfully it's changed. I like that. Counseling now, grief counseling, career counseling for folks that start at our level and then go up to the professional. That's what's helping people because, again, as you say, a lot of things can be broken about the system, but if you don't have people that can operate it, you don't have anything. There's nothing. If you can't recruit people in to do this job, then they're going to have to change the whole system will have to change. So we focused on just on the inside of it, on the personnel, what they're going through, and now what these different departments and what society is doing to help them. Because just like with veterans, the PTSD things, we didn't hear about those things until the last 20 years. And then the focus went to help these people. And because we saw the suicide rates going up, because we saw things happening, troubling things happening with our personnel, that we had to put the focus on that. The other side issues and governmental fundings and those kind of things, like I said, we didn't even have time to address those. We'd see them, like Tom said, he was surprised at the numbers of call increases, personnel decrease, and all those things. But focusing on the people was big for us. But I'm going to let Tom talk about how it looks from the outside.
I mean, the volume of calls was crazy. At the same time, there were so many calls we went on where I'm just like, why are we here?
Mm-hmm.
Why are these guys? It just costs whatever local municipality probably $1,000 to send this ambulance there to change somebody's laundry, or the batteries in their remote, or it really. And Dr. Carmona, the former Surgeon General, talks about this in the film. Like, a lot of times now when people are calling 911, it's because they've just fallen through the cracks. Falling through the cracks implies that there's a net there, and in some cases there's no net.
Oh, yeah.
Where all these systems are failing. So mental health, or someone doesn't have family support, or as you guys know, and I had no idea, the number of calls to care centers where somebody falls down and the staff doesn't want to pick them up, so they call 911 for the liability. I was just watching this all get piled on the sort of last defense here. And to me, the problem isn't as so much with EMS, it's with everything else that should be kicking in before things get to EMS. Because 75% of the calls that I think we went on were could have been handled by somebody else with early intervention before they even got there. And then that would free up EMS to deal with all of this still very high number of critical calls. When we were in Medford, this was when Oregon had quote unquote decriminalized most drugs. So these guys would talk about they're going to go to the same person ODing every single day for 30, 60, 90 days until there's a train on the train track and they can't get past it, and then the person dies. And to talk to those guys and see the toll that took when they just felt like they were on a hamster wheel and not actually helping, I think societally that's just wrong. And I think the average person, if they find out about it, which is why we made this movie, if they find out about it, they want to change it. But most people just literally don't know that that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm. So how do you think that your experience embedding in Detroit and making the two burn films equipped you to then embed with the EMS programs you embed with?
I think it was a couple of things. When I first showed up in Detroit for burn, the Detroit Fire Department was just like the city was a magnet for bad press, and people were very skeptical. And I think over 10 years, it's a year filming the first movie and 9 years filming the second movie, just learned how to talk to people in the fire service and first responders and be respectful and not assume things, and when to ask questions and when to just stand back and let people tell me the story. So I hope that helped. I think also Detroit was always so busy and so dangerous that after doing that for a certain amount of time, and a lot of our crew came from that same from the burn shoots, that you end up learning to just be cool and not get flustered and have eyes in the back of your head. So I probably lost my temper or cool a couple times, but maybe more. But Steve might say more. But for the most part, you just learn to not sweat it. And the good news is, unlike Detroit, we wouldn't park the car and then somebody would try to steal it while we were shooting. So in some ways, this was harder. And so, well, it did happen in Denver once. That's true.
That's true.
Guy
Wow.
with a baseball bat, saw a car full of camera gear, and thought he won the lottery.
Oh
but
my goodness.
but you know, you get kind of bomb proof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for sake of reference, right, we end up with a 90-minute more or less film. How many hours of film were captured to consolidate to that?
Oh boy.
That's a
Probably a couple of 100 hours at least.
At least.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just from the filming. When I came on board, Steve and Bax and Tanya had essentially cast the film, and they had spent years interviewing other departments and individuals to try to find the right match and then navigate those departments and see which we could do and which we couldn't. So it was a couple hundred hours of filming, but I mean, it was years of interviews on their part and legwork. They gave me a list of people they had interviewed and with video for a lot of them. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to take me 2 months just to go through this when I got on board.
Zoom
really talk to people all around the country.
Yeah, I forgot about that. We would interview them on Zoom calls. And then, you know, we'd fall in love with somebody and think this is perfect. And then we'd hit a roadblock with their agency or department. Let's go back and start over again. But we just, you know, we kept digging through the magazines and articles and stories and put feelers out. Give us somebody that's got a little different story. You know, we wanted to, like you said, diversify it. So not just in the country, but with the people or the agencies. And I think we ended up doing that very well. But boy, it wasn't an easy path.
So if we look back, when was this actually filmed?
23.
Okay.
Yeah,
so we're pretty much
right.
on the tails of COVID. We're like, it's not necessarily the number one thing, but it's still not a distant memory like it might be now, theoretically.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we had to shut down at least once that I can remember because all the crew got COVID.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, Steve, what am I saying? Steve and our director of photography, Matt Pappas, both got COVID in Virginia.
Yeah, Matt had it and didn't spread it. And I was the producer that had to go around and get everybody their COVID test, because even when COVID didn't seem to be a big deal anymore, it was still a big deal in the film industry for some reason. And Tom's people on the side, or our gal back here at home, that she says, no, you got to have these COVID tests, got to have them. So everybody in the morning would lay their COVID tests out on the table and they'd go off. And I went down, I go, oh, hold on, somebody here's got COVID. Here's a positive test. They look down and they go, that's you, Chief. You're small.
Oh no.
Plus, we couldn't be like going into people's homes where they might be sick,
suppose, yeah.
You know.
But
yeah, so we shot in 20. People always think that the filming is the majority of the work. It's a lot of it, but the prep and the editing, and I mean, on a movie like this, the legal review took almost a year, because I mean, Steve and I could each teach a PhD level course in HIPAA law at this point. So, you know, every single call, every single shot had to get reviewed by HIPAA attorneys. It was just a huge bear of a project to do.
Sounds expensive more than anything.
Well, that's why we're doing this Kickstarter, my friend. We actually had a great law firm that did it pro bono.
Oh wow, that's incredible.
Unbelievable.
So let's talk through a little bit of the logistics of this film release. So you say if the Kickstarter is successful, which God willing it will be, we launch to limited release come fall. What does that look like? What does a limited release mean?
So that means we'll be booking theaters just like any other movie in select cities. But this is kind of the cool thing with Kickstarter is we've set an amount we want to raise. And the more we raise past that amount, the more cities we can afford to go to. And like you said, getting the people that make the laws, like the politicians, to see the movie is really important to us as well. I remember on Burn, the really smart departments it would just be guys from the department the first night. And then the second night, they'd have their families, they'd have their friends, and they'd have their mayor, they'd have their people on their city council. And it's one thing to ask someone to watch a PowerPoint, but to be like, hey, you want to go to the movies? You can have a beer, we'll get you some popcorn. And it's such a like visceral experience. I saw a lot of laws get changed. So, we're also very excited to get this out to as many cities as possible to spread the word as much as possible, because it's meant to be an experience. So
I was going to say, if a city, say, pick a town, any town USA, is like, we really want to have a screening, is there a way for a town to petition for you to come to them and somehow work out a funding schedule for that?
You go to intotheunknowndoc.com and you send us an email, and that's going to go to Steve and I and a couple other people, and we will email you right back. Absolutely. We would love it.
Mm-hmm. And so from that point on, right, Kickstarter goes good, limited release goes good. Then you go to a digital format, digital release. I'm presuming pay to play through the Into the Unknown website, or are you looking for a distribution platform to go through Netflix or Amazon or one of these other places, hopefully pick it up, or what's the hope?
Great question. It will not be on Netflix, because Netflix is a whole
nightmare.
Don't get me started. So the first wave, when it's out digitally, will be to rent and buy on like Apple TV, Amazon, Google Play, YouTube Movies, pretty much any place you go to rent or buy movies. And that'll be in about 80 countries. And then probably like 3 months later, it'll be on like ad-based, right? Like Tubi or Pluto, or like the commercial part of YouTube. And then in between those, we'll do the educational release for classrooms, and any sort of school or organization. So it's pretty comprehensive. As my side job, I co-own a documentary distribution company. So we're kind of uniquely suited to be able to get that out in a pretty major way.
And so with the release thing, how do you have a plan already in terms of like, if we raise X amount of dollars, it goes to these 3 cities? Have you already picked your central hubs? If I would be presumptuous, I would guess probably New York City and Chicago and LA and probably the biggest metropolitan areas. Or is that totally wrong?
Not necessarily. If you go to our Kickstarter page, people can actually donate to sponsor screenings in certain cities.
Interesting.
So like the core of it, and Steve, jump in if I get anything wrong, is we've got LA, we're actually probably more Orange County, New York, and then the cities we filmed in, where we got to take it there, and give everybody the red carpet treatment. And then beyond that, it just depends on how much money we raise or what departments or organizations come in that want to partner with us. I mean, we'll show it as many cities as we can if we can get partners to help out.
So I don't know if this is a flat rate or what it's hypothetically a chief or someone. A lot of chiefs listen to the show. If a chief's listening and I would really love to like partner with you guys. Do you have any sort of ballpark for what it costs to bring the film to a town?
Oh, that's a great question. It really depends. It's one of the things that's so surprising for people that don't work in the film business. Booking theaters, the cost varies wildly depending on the city, what part of the city, the size of the screen, the day of the week. Can be anywhere from $0 to thousands of dollars.
Interesting.
Yeah, so really depends. If people want to reach out to us, we can talk to them about what their goals are and where they're located, and try to come up with a way to make it work.
Of course. Yeah. So kind of putting a bow on this thing, what's the goal? I mean, I think we've talked about like what the broad scope goals are in terms of like, we want awareness and we want mental health awareness. We want to maybe affect some lawmakers and stuff like that. But like for a group of people to dedicate years, if not, pushing decades of their life to a project, what is the hope for the project in totality?
Steve, you and I might have different goals. What?
Yeah. I think it goes back to the initial thing, which is just to honor those people that did the job. And I mean, it would be nice to be able to say, to get it into a platform, whether it's streaming, whatever that is, to get it out to the most amount of people that can see this, because that means the job that you did, you helped educate this many more people than this many. So we could go either way with that. But I can tell you that the most, so far, the satisfaction that I've had, and Tom might have had something different, was when we had screenings and there were professionals from that do the job there, and they would come down and talk to us afterwards. A lot of them with tears in their eyes. Like you said, they go, "I've never seen anything," or, you really hit the spot for me. This, I've never been able to tell family members what I do, and here now you have it to show it to them. So, with as many EMS and I know there's over 8 million firefighters themselves in this country with volunteers and pay, but with all the amount of people in this country and then all their families and everybody around them and their friends, that seems to be, that would be a big thing for us, is to have those people all honored and have people understand what the kind of job it is they do.
Mm-hmm. And how do you differ from that? Do you want to dishonor the members of the EMS?
No, see, I
think more movies. So he said, I got to sell this movie. So
yeah.
I think Steve nailed it, right? We want to have these people feel seen and understood and give them a tool to be able to show people what they do, whether that's somebody's spouse or kid or friend or the people that sign their paychecks. We saw how amazing this job is. We saw how hard this job is, harder than ever, I think. And, if we can be a small part of improving that for people, that would be pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I can't overstate, it would quite literally be impossible to overstate how accurately it depicts I glow, and it's not because I consider you a friend, Tom, or anything like that. It really is an unbelievable movie. And it's my wife's an ER nurse. We've watched it together, and she's just as blown away by it as I was. The truth put to film. It would be impossible to watch it and not be affected by it and feel the truth that it shows. So, as we kind of close this out, I just truthfully, from a first responder, from an EMT, from a firefighter, thank you for making a movie that shows my life, right? Because there's no way that I could show it myself.
And
Jake, that's what we like to hear right there. That's exactly what we do. That makes all these years
me cry.
You
thanks
lose
for
that mustache, and all of a sudden you go soft.
I know. Next time I'll be it.
Yeah.
Thanks for everything you're doing, and thanks for having this podcast and just trying to share these stories with people. It's pretty cool to be back and to be having watched how the whole thing has been growing in the year and a half since we talked.
Yeah, it's crazy. It just, I feel like, I've always kind of said it's a selfish endeavor. It gives me the opportunity to talk to interesting people and tell interesting stories. It would be impossible for one human to have enough interesting stories to capture the audience. So I'm fortunate to have friends and make friends that have interesting stories to tell, and I get to come along for the ride. And so I feel fortunate for that.
That's cool.
Amazing. Thank you. We got to bring the movie to St. Paul.
I was going to say, if I wasn't going to say it on the show, maybe I will now. I will have to make it happen. I know people, and we can find the money. I'd love to bring it the show, and maybe if I can twist your arm, get you out here or something like that, that'd be pretty cool.
That's why I'm saying it. It's an excuse to come out and hang.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
You'll have to grow the mustache out. That's the only thing.
Okay, sounds good. Deal.
All right. Well, thank you guys for doing the show. I appreciate it. Let's get this thing funded. We'll have the links in the show notes. If you want to just drop a quick, where they find more information before we let you go, and I'll let you run.
Sounds good. If you can, you can go to intotheunknown.com, or you can go right to kickstarter.com and do a search for Into the Unknown. And we'll send you a shortened link that you can, if you want to put in the show notes, so people can click on that as well.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll get that in the show notes. You can click that there or search it up. But yeah, let's get this thing funded. It's super important. We got to get it out to the masses. Thank you,
We
guys.
agree.
It's great to
Thanks,
see you.
Jake.
It's great to see you, Tom.
Appreciate
Great
you.
to meet you, Steve. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.